Welcome back everyone to more NASCAR Heat 3 coverage here at Knee Pit Gaming. Today's setup video is all about Auto Club Speedway. We'll be taking a look at both the lap times and the setup for both the Xfinity cars as well as the Monster Energy Cup cars. Unfortunately, the trucks are not racing here, so we don't get to have fun with them, but we will be taking a look at the top two series of Xfinity and Cup. Also, if you haven't had a chance to check out the gameplay footage that I released a little bit earlier for the Xfinity cars, go ahead and check that out. I will go ahead and put a link in the description below for that. Also, I did a setup for this particular track in NASCAR Heat 2 as well. And the idea is this particular setup is going to be a little bit different, have a little bit different feel. And so I'm going to link that setup for NASCAR Heat 2 at Auto Club in the description as well, so you can take a look at both and see which one suits your driving style better. So that takes care of our introduction. Let's go ahead and head to the track. We'll start our discussion with the Xfinity cars. And first, let's talk a little bit about lap times. Anywhere from a 39.3, 39.4, 39.5, somewhere in that range is plenty fast enough. That would actually put you on the pole or in the top three somewhere for the race, and you will easily be able to outrun the AI even on maximum difficulty. So that shouldn't be a problem at all. Let's move on to the setup. Now, the shock settings, the combination between the shocks and the spring settings are what help us get through the bumps that are very prevalent at this particular track. Using the 3-5 setup between bump and rebound really helps me out, but of course, feel free to adjust those to your liking. Moving on to the weight settings, this is where we get a little bit different than what I did in last year's NASCAR Heat 2 setup. A lot more front weight and wedge in this particular setup, using 53% for both. Moving over to the springs, 900 pounds on both of the front springs. Using even front springs helps the car on entry. It definitely helps the car turn a little bit better on entry. If the car is a little bit too loose for you, then one of the things you can do is drop that left front spring a little bit or increase the right front spring a little bit. Rear springs, 300 and 500 respectively. I find that 200 pounds of rear spring split really helps the car to rotate without getting it too loose under throttle. Tire settings, you've got options here. 26, 27 pounds on the left sides, and you can run around 32, 33 pounds on the right side, or what you see on the screen here, I'm running 50 pounds on both. For me, that picks me up about a tenth or so, but it does change the handling some. So keep in mind, 26, 27 pounds on the left side and around 32, 33 pounds on the right side if you want to try that out as well. Moving on to the miscellaneous settings, the biggest thing I want to point out here is the track bar. 12 inches, 13 inches. The fact that we're using more front weight and wedge means that we can raise the track bar up, which while the front weight and wedge really helps to steady the car and keep it under control, the track bar allows it to continue to rotate. Wheel lock is at 10 degrees, which is pretty standard for me on the asphalt tracks. I use a little bit more than that typically on the dirt tracks, and then steering offset of 0.1. As always, the gear settings at 3.25, you can play around with that a little bit to get more or less RPM, and you might pick up or lose a little bit of speed doing that. But this setup should be plenty to have you dominating the AI on maximum difficulty. Now, let's move to the Cup cars. For the Cup cars, I find that I can run anywhere from a 38.4, 38.5, somewhere in that range, and that's good enough to put you in the top 3 or 4 for qualifying, and then during the race, you will have no trouble passing and pulling away from the AI even on maximum difficulty. So lap time should not be an issue here. You'll notice that this setup looks very similar. In fact, it's almost identical to the Xfinity cars. I generally like to do that. I do that on purpose simply because it keeps things simple and it keeps a similar feel between the two cars. So once you get used to a feel, you find something you like, you can transfer it among all 3 of the top series, in fact, with small changes. So that's what we've done. A few changes that I do want to point out, little differences between the Xfinity and the Cup car. The left front spring, you notice that I have increased it to 950 pounds, making it a little bit more than the right front spring. The reason I did that was to help out a little bit on entry. I wanted the car to be able to turn just a little bit better, particularly in turn 3, so that I could get down into the corner and get to the right line, and also not have the car get too terribly loose. The other thing I want to point out is the difference in the track bar. We're at 11 inches and 12 inches, so a little bit lower than what we used on the Xfinity car. Grill tape is also lower by a tick, and the gear settings are the same. So hopefully this setup helps you out. Between this setup and last year's NASCAR Heat 2 setup, which again I will link in the description below, hopefully one of those two will get you where you need to be. Best of luck on the track, and we'll see you next time for more NASCAR Heat 3 coverage here at Knee Pit Gaming.